Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Lash, and I'm the director of Georgia Conflict Center. And I want to say welcome to Seeds for Peace. This is our spring fundraiser, and specifically today we're raising funds for something called Restorative Justice. Has anyone heard of Restorative Justice here? A few people. Okay. So this is something that we're doing in the school system here in Clark County and a few other places. And it's about building relationships between kids and the folks, the adults that work at the school. And when we have problems, we use those relationships as a way to address the problem, to fix it. And we do this instead of punishment. And the research shows that when kids are punished, when kids get suspended and things like that, their outcomes tend to be less healthy. They tend to have, their well-being is reduced. And so what this is about is creating a positive school culture that's based on dialogue, it's based on emotional intelligence and relationships as a way to address our problems collaboratively. So I want to say welcome, thanks for coming. If you just came here and you didn't know this was happening, welcome. And we've got some desserts, we've got a raffle, and we've got some great music coming up. And we got some plants that have been donated. They're outside, some really cool plants. That's our theme, Seeds for Peace. And our first musical offering is going to be from my friends Beto and Noe. And welcome them.
I want to say we've got a great lineup today. Each band is not going to, and each performance won't be very long, but thank you again, Beto and Noe. Yes. In between sets, and before I introduce the next performers, I would like to say that we asked people who were practicing restorative justice in schools, from the administrators to the head sort of coordinator to teachers to students, to get up and say a minute or two, just talk a little bit about what restorative practices in schools actually means to them. And so I would like to introduce Sasha Baker, who I was so excited to meet several times through Athens Anti-Discrimination Movement, just a little shout out to them, and also with my work with Danny Malec, who you'll hear from in a little bit. So Danny and Sasha work at Clark Middle School, and I shadowed Danny for about 3 months and got to know Sasha even better, and she's amazing. So can she speak first? Sure. All right. All right, Sasha?
Treacherous coming up there. Hi everybody, good afternoon, good afternoon. As she said, my name is Sasha Baker and I work at Clark Middle School, and she just asked me to kind of share a vignette, and I promised my daughter I would throw that word in, and she's like, you're never going to be able to do it, but I just did a vignette. So it was funny because both my kids came through Clark Middle, and I've been there for about 17 years, so they've seen a real big change in it too. So the story I kind of want to share, the vignette, is what my daughter said the other day, and I was telling her about this event, and she said, well, I'll say this. A lot of things you guys plan don't really work out like you think they do. She's like, and you don't know what people really say, but you guys should be really proud of that stuff. It really worked. There were a lot less fights, and people were actually talking to each other. She was like, so, and they were saying it was because of stuff that you, like, they were referencing things you guys had in different lessons and stuff. So I thought that was the biggest shout out we could get. And it just takes a constant drumbeat, a constant support of teachers. We were not only have experience teaching differently, but we also have experience being taught differently. So this is a change for teachers in a lot of ways too. And so the more we can keep up the learning and the training and the support and the pat on the backs and the, being there, Mr. Malec there in the trenches, that's an amazing support for us. But it's also an expensive support for us. And as part of the LSGT, we decided at the end of last year when we were doing our innovative grant that this was what we wanted to support. And that, we had some seeds of it the year prior, some smatterings here and there of trainings and things we tried out. And this was going to be just a whole kind of concerted effort to make this happen. And it's happening. It hasn't happened. I think it's forever going to be happening. And whether it stays or not is going to really be up to a whole team of people in the community to support us and to support us spreading throughout Clark County, because They're all the same kids. It's all our kids. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sasha. We have one more speaker before Carly Joy and the Athens Women's Singing Circle. But before that, Tina Guthrie, who is indispensable. Everybody, please give a round. Please go in there. All right. So we're going to do the first door prize.
Door prizes are the red ticket stubs that you have. When you paid to get in, you were given a red ticket stub. Toward the end of the evening, we'll pull the blue raffle tickets for the raffle ticket items on the back bar. Okay, get your red ticket out to see if you've won this beautiful ceramic platter. The number is 238-2099. If you have that ticket, this platter is yours. You got it? Come on down. Come on down. Yep, it's yours. Thank you. Local Potter. Come back. We'll be pulling more door prizes in between sets and the raffle prizes at the very end. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. One more speaker right now, Collisa Lankford, who I am so pleased to have here in Athens with us. Collisa, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
You can applaud. Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm the daughter of a Baptist preacher, so y'all gonna have to talk to me. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Oh, that's so much better. And in the spirit of my father, a Baptist preacher, I'm very good at asking for money. So let me just put that out there. All right. I am from New York, and I'm a product of New York City Public Schools. I graduated, telling my age, I'm still youngish, in 1992. And, yes, I knew there was something about you. And so the year after I graduated, they installed metal detectors in all New York City public schools. And I said to myself, I don't know if I could have gone through that every day, because it's like you're going to learn, but it's actually like you're going into a prison kind of thing situation. And so I kind of stumbled into this restorative justice practice. I saw something on Facebook, and I was like, wow, that training looks really cool. Didn't really know what I was walking into. I had done some reflective structured dialogue, which is completely different. But I did this practice, and I was like, wow, I did 4-day training. Shout out to Danny. And I must have did pretty good because I got hired to be a restorative justice coordinator. So I'll be working in Clark Central High School. Primarily, and probably another school. Shout out to Clark Central. Graduates, yeah. And so, I just wanted to say this. There are people that can be in the trenches, right? I'm one of those because I'm from the almost hood. I'm in the city, you know. But then there are those that can help in other ways. So I have 2 little sayings that I like to say that I hope will encourage you. One of them is, let's not just talk about it. Let's be about it. Athens, we're professional talkers. We have these meetings and we come together, which is awesome because that's part of the process. But we need to be about it. So ways that you can be about it, you can give, right? That's my daughter. She likes to eat, if that works. So you can give because they got to pay me. And then there was one other saying, but like I said, I graduated in 92, so I don't know if I can remember it. Don't talk about it, just be about it. And what was the other one? Oh, you heard this before. You can either be part of the problem or part of the solution. So me being part of the solution is actually going into the schools and doing this work, right? But you can also be part of the solution by helping to plant these seeds of change. I'm done. Thank you.
I want to introduce my friend Danny Malec, and Danny and I met, I'm trying to remember how many years ago now. It's a few years, 5 years ago, and I think maybe emailed me, I can't remember. And there's like some guy and he wants to talk about restorative justice. And we met down at the Sultan and had a nice lunch together. And the more I talked to him, the more I realized how aligned we are around this vision of restorative justice and how restorative justice can really create the change that we want to see in the world. And so I told Danny, I said, I can't remember his whole biography. I'll let him say a little bit more about himself. But in terms of the work that's happening here in Clark County, for sure, I can say that without Danny's presence here in Athens, this work would not be happening in the way that it's happening. I feel certain of that. And so I just want to welcome him with a big hand and let's hear a story from him.
So I was thinking about singing, and then the women's singing circle came along. And there's no way I'm going to try to follow that act. Let's have another round of applause for women's singing circle and Beto and Noe. Always a gift to hear from them. So first off, I'd just like to express my gratitude for the opportunity to do restorative practices, restorative justice full-time in the Clark County schools. This would not be possible at all without the Georgia Conflict Center and all the groundwork that's been laid over years in Clark County schools, doing all kinds of work around nonviolent communication, conflict resolution, and restorative justice. Before moving to Athens, I was assistant principal at a high school, assistant principal of restorative justice at E.L. Haynes Public Charter High School in Washington, D.C. I was there for 4 years and I love my job, but now it has been a gift and a pleasure to work in Clark County School District with such passionate teachers and administrators, some of whom are over in this section. Wonderful, amazing, committed folks. To work alongside them to help build a restorative school culture. This year I've been working at 3 schools, mostly at Clark Middle School 3 days a week, but also spending time regularly at Cedar Shoals High School and Whit Davis Elementary. I'm going to speak a bit more about my time at Clark Middle School. Clark Middle School really was an environment ripe for this journey of building restorative culture long before I got there. They'd actually begun that journey as a staff and with the leadership of Dr. Ashley Perry during the previous school year. And at the conclusion of the 2017-18 school year, the consensus among the staff was, let's keep going. And so it was then, during last summer, that I began to work with Clark Middle. We formed a restorative justice leadership team, which was comprised of teachers, school leadership. We began a process of training, strategic planning, and implementation. We set goals, we trained all the staff. Building restorative school culture is a long-term journey. At its core, it's about culture change. So we've been taking baby steps this year in order to build a firm foundation for strong relationships rooted in respect and mutual responsibility. During this school year, we facilitated around 300 restorative interventions. Everything from proactive restorative circles to deal with intensifying conflict, and to teach nonviolent ways of handling conflict, to restorative meetings between teachers and students, giving them a safe, quiet place to be able to talk about things that are going on in the classroom. And then to restorative conferences involving parents and community members to address more serious incidents of harm. More than 75 parents came into Clark Middle this year to participate in restorative processes. Some who had never really had a positive relationship with the school system left very positive about their experience. And nearly 200 students at Clark Middle, out of 800, were able to work collaboratively through these various restorative interventions to make a situation better. I'd like to share one story that I believe highlights the importance and power of restorative justice. This year we collaborated with Clark County School District to invite my friend and colleague, Dr. Charles Curtis, came down from Washington, D.C. He came to speak about his journey of helping start Ron Brown College Preparatory High School in Washington, D.C., which is founded upon the principles of restorative justice. We had 2 sessions, one in the morning for about 60 CCSD staff, and then we had a community event that evening at the Clark County Library. Were any of you there? Raise your hand if you were there. Wonderful. It was both the combination of events was powerful. The next day I went to school to Clark Middle, and Principal McMillan, Mr. Tad McMillan, who many of you I'm sure know, had been to both of those events. And he said that he decided after seeing Dr. Curtis's presentation that he wanted to reverse direction on a decision to send a student to an expulsion hearing, and instead he wanted to refer that student to a restorative circle. I was super excited. The student had been suspended for verbal and physical aggression towards the school resource officer. It was a serious situation. And in my experience, that is the most important time to go the route of restorative circle rather than punitive discipline. And we chose to do that. A few days later, after a good deal of individual meetings and preparation, we held the restorative circle. At first, the student was quiet and somewhat disengaged, surrounded by adults for the most part in that circle, including the SRO, who the last time he had seen, they had a very difficult interaction. But through the circle, all present were able to share their thoughts and feelings about the incident, including what led the student to respond in such a way. And together we developed a plan on how we would repair the harm done, which included keeping the student in school. That student has since successfully completed his 8th grade year at Clark Middle School, and he'll be going to Clark Central next year. Choosing restorative justice over the traditional punitive routes takes courage, and it takes a fair amount of trust. However, when we choose the route of restorative justice, we have the potential to not only change the trajectory of a struggling child, we have the potential to change our own hearts and minds. We've been working this year with 3 schools, as I mentioned, and we hope to continue to work with them. And we've been approached by 3 more schools, Bernie Harris Lyons, HB Stroud, and Clark Central. So we have the possibility of being in both high schools this year, 2 middle schools and 2 elementary schools. The challenge that we're facing is funding. We may not be able to go that route if we can't, because this is going to take a team of folks. You heard from Collisa, who's part of our team now. You're going to hear from Greg Winley later, who also we're seeking to be part of the team. We can only bring them on in a capacity that makes sense for them as well with further funding. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to work with all of you to build a restorative school system here in Clark County. I appreciate your courage and I appreciate your trust. I especially appreciate your support for this work. I look forward to continuing this journey with you to build a restorative school system in Clark County. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina. Congratulations to all the winners. Exciting. So I just want to briefly introduce the next speaker. Like Collisa, Gregory is a new restorative practices facilitator in our schools. And I met Gregory at training. Actually, we've been in 2 or 3 trainings together now. 4. I'm losing track, man. And immediately, Danny, John, myself, Tina, everybody in the session was like, who is this guy and how could we get him in the schools? Well, no big surprise. Gregory Winley has been in the schools already. He's part of, or was part of the LSGT team at Clark Central, at Clark's schools. Was it middle school? Clark Middle. Thank you. And he has been a very integral part of many children's lives, including his own son. So, without further ado, Gregory Winley, come on up.
Good afternoon. How are you guys doing? Good. You know, at one point I used to always ask my son that question. Like, how are you doing every day? Good. You know what? Let's find a different adjective. So I want you guys to think one more time about how you're doing and just say it. adjective or a progressive adverb? Huh? What's that? Okay, so again, how are you guys doing? Ah, yes, I love it, I love it. See, now we got a lot of different flavor, like my shirt. So thank you for those responses. I like, again, thank you, Jodi. Thank you to the Malecs. Thank you to the Nashes. Thank you for Tina back there. Thank you guys, all of you guys at Clark Middle. Thank you guys, all the educators in here, administrators. Thank you for all the parents, just all stakeholders who are supportive of Georgia Conflict Center and the work that we're doing with restorative practices. I really wanted to thank you guys. First and foremost, I'm so grateful that you guys would even give me this opportunity. Just so grateful for the opportunity to just share with you today. So I just first and foremost, thank you all. Can you just give yourselves a round of applause? Thank you guys. Thank you guys. I mean, this work couldn't happen without you. And so we do appreciate it. Last year, we were only in 3 schools. This next year, we're coming up with 3 more schools. I just shared an article with Danny just today. Last week, I read an article in USA Today, and they were talking about restorative practices in Houston, Texas, where a school district in Houston, Texas has now restorative practices in 26 of their schools. It has some surveys about schools in Oakland, California, where restorative practices are spreading throughout the school districts, and people are seeing results. And so I'm excited that it's here at Clark County School Districts. As I said, I was once a teacher here in Clark County School District. I'm a behavior interventionist, so I work with behavior. I work with students who struggle with behavior, struggle with acclimating to classroom and things like that. And I recognize how much of a challenge it is and how we need to think differently about how to support those individuals. And so when I got the opportunity through my school governance team at Clark Middle to pursue this as a result of Dr. Means's initiative to improve social and emotional learning in our school systems, I really got excited about it. And just a quick story, because it just sparked. I didn't know what I was going to talk about when I came up here, but when I heard that the next band that was coming up was a father-son duo, it only made sense for me to share a story about my own son and how my involvement and my advocacy in his life has kind of led me here. My son just finished an 8th grader at Clark Middle. He just graduated yesterday. Can you celebrate with me? Thank you guys. Also Nico, which is right here. Nico, he just graduated 8th grade at Clark Middle. That's Mr. Malec's son. He was sitting right next to my son yesterday at the graduation. So yeah, I look forward to meeting you some more and knowing you some more, Nico. But again, my son went 3 years through Clark Middle, and then his elementary school was at Timothy Elementary. We love Timothy Elementary, and when it was time to come to Clark Middle, to come to middle school, he was very nervous. He was scared. He heard the stories about middle school. You know, he heard from friends. He heard from the community. He heard from other parents about middle school and even about Clark Middle in general. I'm a native here from Athens. I went to Bernie Harris Middle School, and I also graduated from Clark Central High School. And so I know it's been a lot of improvement in the school districts since I went through school, but I know it's still a lot more work that has to be done. So in 6th grade, my son, you know, he's just a curious little boy, about 11 years old. Well, my son was playing in his bedroom, which used to be his uncle's bedroom. My son lives with his grandmother, and so my son found a little pocket knife under the bed, and he was playing with it at home, and somehow the pocket knife ended up in his book bag. And so he went almost a whole week with this pocket knife in his book bag, not knowing that it was even there. But one day he discovered it while sitting in class that, hey, I got a pocket knife in my book bag. And just like a young little kid, what he did, he showed the young lady who was sitting next to him in his classroom. Well, of course, that didn't go well. This young lady had went and told the resource officer that my son had a knife at school and had showed her a knife. And so that didn't go very well. My son was suspended from school for 10 days, and he was facing expulsion. He was facing getting kicked out of Clark County schools and having to be sent to alternative schools. Again, he was 11 years old, just right out of elementary school, and he found himself in a tough spot. I found myself in a tough spot. You know, we never experienced anything like this. My son never got any disciplinary actions going through school. He wasn't a troubled kid. He didn't have any enemies. He made good friends. And so the incident with the knife in his pocket was just simply in his book bag, was just simply I was playing with it at home, and I found it happened to be at school. You know, I didn't have no intentions to use it or anything like that. So those 10 days that he was suspended, he spent time with dad. Because he lives with mom. And so those 10 days that he was suspended, he spent time with dad. And we really reflected. I had him journal on the incident to really try to get him to understand what his part in that was. But what came out of that is we had to sit before the district people to advocate for him to stay in school. Mr. McMillan, Tad McMillan, the principal of the school, sat around the table with myself and some other advocates of my son. And what came out of that is that I advocated well for him, and he was able to speak for himself based off of the practice that I gave him to talk about. He read a statement of how he was innocent and how he was thoughtful and mindful of what happened. And so from out of that, what happened about 2 weeks later, Mr. McMillan, Tad, came to me and asked if I could join the local school governance team. I believe he saw something there. I believe he saw how well I advocated for my son, and I'm active in the community advocating for a lot of other youth. And I'm so proud to be a part of restorative practices so that we could advocate for more youth in Clark County. With this year coming up, I will be in Bernie Harris Middle School, and I will also be in Howard B. Stroud. Howard B. Stroud used to be 4th Street. I was a kid at 4th Street, and I was a kid at Bernie Harris one time. Now I can go back and support those same kids who were once in my shoes, trying to help them to receive just equality and just justice, just like we all desire in life. So again, thank you all. Thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing me to share my voice and my story. I look to meet a lot more of you guys, and I hope you guys really are active in this work that we're doing. Thank you again. Thank you, Jodi.
Our last speaker, we saved the best to last. Chris Pendley is the associate principal at Clark Middle School. And I have, I won't long introduction. Chris, come on up here. He has been very patient in waiting to the very end. And if you just want to make a couple remarks about what restorative practices means to you, I appreciate it, because you are so integral in bringing us in. Thank you.
So I'm Christopher Pendley. I'm the assistant principal at Clark Middle School, where we have just finished with a great deal of support from the Georgia Conflict Center, our first year of implementation of restorative practices. And as I thought about what I wanted to say to you today, I thought I could talk about our discipline data and how we started the year with probably the highest incidence of student aggression and student violence on each other that we've ever had. And we finished the year at a 3-year low. I thought I could talk about the parents. Yeah, you can cheer for that. I'll take it. And then I thought that I could talk about the parents who walk into the building thinking of us as enemies and having a lot of distrust of the educational system, and walking out the doors after a restorative conference looking at us as partners in their child's success. Or I could talk to you about the students who come to my office now and say, Mr. Pendley, I've got this issue, I've got a problem with another student, can you help us talk that out? But all of those things are sort of minor compared to what the big thing is that we got out of our work with restorative practices this year. And I think that was a reminder of the power and the greatness that exists in all of the students that we teach. And the challenge of that work has been a recognition that it's our job in our school and really the job of our community to see that greatness in all of the children of our community every day and to create the conditions where that greatness can grow. And that seems like something that should be sort of like a no-brainer for a school. That's what we're there for. But the challenging thing is that many of my students, they learn through all of their lives that they are not great and they are not powerful. And they learn that from the images that they see in the media or the images that are conspicuously absent from the media. They learn that from the promises and the platforms of politicians who care more about power than they do about equity. They learn that when they see the news and they see example after example of police violence or systemic violence against our communities of color. And sadly, they learn it from our schools as well, when we have schools that see them as scores and as growth percentiles and as funding formulas instead of as people. So what we have gotten as a school is a recognition that it is our job to see the power and the greatness of every student that comes into our building and to create the conditions where that greatness can flourish. And the bottom line is that sometimes because they're middle schoolers, they don't see their own greatness or they don't live up to their own greatness. And in those cases, it's not our job to punish kids. It's not our job to further distance them from the greatness that's in them. It's our job to restore them, to bring them back into our community. And so what I'll say is this work has been powerful for us. I've been in education for 15 years. It's probably the most powerful work that I've done. And more than its power, it's also absolutely necessary for our community right now. And so if you're capable, if you have the financial means, please, I encourage you to give. If you're not at a place where you can give money to help with this cause, then please talk to your school board representative, talk to your commissioner, talk to anybody else who's in a position of power who can help support this work, because it's the work that needs to be done so that the students that come to our schools can feel like they are part of our community. Thanks.